Inside the U.S. Senate office building today in Washington, mayhem, fury, and pushback, with demonstrators making their message clear. Brett Kavanaugh has no place on the U.S. Supreme Court.
I am innocent.
Kavanaugh, accused of sexual assault and misconduct by these two women, Christine Blasey Ford and Deborah Ramirez, has his fate in play behind these secured doors on Capitol Hill, where U.S. senators, now typically with police protection outside that room, are poring over the FBI's report into those allegations. Its findings are confidential, but early word from the White House, Kavanaugh will be just fine.
We feel very confident that we will have the votes.
Still, tonight, the focus is on 3 Republican senators still on the fence. If any 2 of them ultimately support Kavanaugh, he's in. And while 2 have suggested the report is positive, for the record, they're still unsure. Other Republican senators emphasized the FBI's main finding.
There's no corroboration of Dr. Ford's allegations or Ms. Ramirez's allegations.
It's a bullshit investigation.
But Democrats label the report a sham and say investigators ignored multiple other witnesses.
This is wholly unacceptable. It is a truncated, curtailed, not even a halfway effort to interview the relevant people.
I think he's doing very well. The judge is doing well, right? Yeah.
In Minnesota today, Trump seemed buoyant about it all. And at a rally tonight, so too the crowd, with an early big cheer as soon as he mentioned that name.
Potentially, hopefully, Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh.
And tonight we're hearing directly from Brett Kavanaugh himself. In an op-ed published in the Wall Street Journal, he addresses his words and tone in his testimony last week on Capitol Hill. He says he was overwhelmingly frustrated at being wrongly accused, and so he was more emotional than he'd ever been before. As he puts it, maybe too emotional, said things he shouldn't have said. But he pledges to be a hardworking, even-keeled judge. Going public in this way, perhaps a signal, Adrian, he knows his confirmation isn't yet a sure thing.
But surprise, surprise, Paul, there's yet another wrinkle tonight.
Of course there is. Why wouldn't there be? Steve Daines, a Republican senator from Montana and a Kavanaugh supporter, now says he's not going to be in Washington on the weekend when there very well might be the big vote to confirm Kavanaugh. But he's got a good reason to be away. His daughter's getting married back home in Montana, and he's walking her down the aisle. Who knew? And likewise, who knows what this means for the vote, if there's a vote, but it doesn't exactly help the Republicans. Then again, lots can change before then. Saturday's a long way away, Adrian. It's only Thursday.
Amazing. Paul Hunter in Washington tonight. Thanks, Paul. So you heard Paul say there that there is a whiff of confidence from the Republicans despite some razor-sharp margins. The final vote, again, expected Saturday, is going to be close, and the math of it is really precarious. Republicans need 50 of 100 votes since the vice president would break any tie. Democrats need all 49 of their votes along with at least 2 Republicans. So all eyes are now on 4 senators whose votes have been a little uncertain. Republican Jeff Flake requested the FBI investigation. Today he said its report contains no additional corroborating information. So he's sounding like a lock for Kavanaugh. But Republican Susan Collins still appears undecided, and Republican Lisa Murkowski says she doesn't know if the FBI has been thorough enough. And then there's Democrat Joe Manchin, up for re-election in a red, meaning Republican state. Voting no could put his seat at risk. So you saw a little bit of today's protests in Paul's story. There's no doubt Kavanaugh's nomination has stirred up Democratic anger and determination, but make no mistake, it is also rallying Republicans. We're joined now by Washington correspondent Keith Bogue. So Keith, with midterm elections just, 5 weeks away, how is the Kavanaugh nomination going to shake things up?
Well, Republicans seem to think it'll shake things up. They appear to have made a tactical switch in the last few days and decided to play the Kavanaugh confirmation as a wedge issue. Remember last week, President Trump and his advisors were very respectful of Christine Blasey Ford. This week, different story. Trump mocked her at a rally in Mississippi Tuesday night. He distorted and misrepresented her testimony, and he made Brett Kavanaugh out to be a victim of a smear campaign. His message was that it was Kavanaugh's life that had been ruined because he'd been falsely accused, and that could happen to any man. And of course, men who already feel they're getting a raw deal about a lot of things are a big part of Trump's base.
So how do Republicans think that's actually going to help them?
They think it'll wake up their base. A couple of weeks ago, a Republican strategy memo leaked that revealed they had a problem with motivating their base. Their base was apathetic about the midterms, didn't believe all the talk of a Democratic blue wave sweeping them out of power, thought it was just fake news, because after all, that was what Trump had been telling them it was. So, when the Kavanaugh fight became tribal, Republican strategists saw it as an opportunity to reconnect with their base, give them a jolt, remind them of why elections matter and who they like in office and who they don't.
What's your gut about whether it's working?
Well, my gut, I don't know, but we have a PBS NPR poll out yesterday that showed the Republicans have all but eliminated the enthusiasm gap between them and the Democrats. Now, it also showed more Americans believe Ford over Kavanaugh, and that Kavanaugh is a strikingly unpopular nominee. But the enthusiasm point is good news for Republicans.
Okay, Keith Bogue, thanks very much. I know what you'll be watching tomorrow.
Yeah, for sure. Take care.
So as much as this issue divides all American voters, it especially divides women, and we need to get both sides. So we reached out to a conservative commentator and a Democratic activist. Each works for a different women's group. We asked them both the precise same questions.
I felt myself personally that things in my past came to the fore, and I knew that women around the country and around the world were feeling as I did.
I'm glad she had her chance to be heard. And when Kavanaugh took the stand and it was his turn, you also saw a very sympathetic character. I personally don't think it matters who is convinced or even who sounds more credible. I think that's an irrelevant question. We need to think about processes like due process and like the presumption of innocence before guilt, not just whether or not you believe somebody did something or not.
Yes, I was definitely convinced. It was really important that she was so steady, and she spoke for all of us, I think, when she was speaking the truth. No, I don't think that he should be confirmed as a Supreme Court justice. Frankly, I don't think he should sit in judgment over anybody.
I think Judge Kavanaugh is beyond qualified for the Supreme Court. I think it's really unfortunate and unfair what he's had to go through in this process to get there. I also think there are facts to defend what he said. What he said when he blamed a lot of these allegations on the left. We know that liberal groups have been involved in this smear campaign.
You know, I really think this has nothing to do with politics at all. This has to do with violence. It has to do with disrespect of women. It will divide us even further as far as privileged white people are concerned, in particular white men. However, I think it will bring more and more women together.
America was deeply divided before Judge Kavanaugh was nominated to the Supreme Court, and I think we will remain a deeply divided country.